Good afternoon, gents. How are we?
Good.
Good. I'm good, thank you. My name's Ron. I'm going to be your trainer for today, and we're going to be discussing identifying hazards and assessing risks and implementing controls in light vehicle brake service and inspection. I have our student attendance record sheet here, so I'll just go through the names so that you know, I know who you are and I know that you're here. Seth.
Yeah.
Thank you, Seth. Brian.
Yeah.
Brian's here. Valen.
Yeah.
Thank you, Valen. Jensen.
Yeah.
Rightio. So you are all here. I can tick you off as being present. So we'll talk about brakes and we'll talk about the safety aspects of brakes. Anyone work with brakes?
Yeah, a little bit.
Were you aware of any issues or dangers associated with it?
No, just a bit of brake dust.
Bit of brake dust, you knew about it?
Yeah.
Okay. So brakes can have a lot of hazards associated with them. We have brake dust. That's probably number one. Asbestos. Brake pads were entirely made out of asbestos back in the day. However, they have removed that content from it, but not all of it. And some companies might not have removed it at all. So we always make sure, we assume that every time we're working on brakes, that it's going to have asbestos in the brakes. So we always got to make sure we're aware of that and how we deal with that. We have to know how we're going to deal with that. So other problems we have with brakes, hazards, we have chemicals. So we've got brake fluid, that's a chemical. We also have brake clean. A lot of people use brake clean to clean brake components. Sometimes we've got to use rubber grease, so we've got grease as well, and we all have to be aware of the hazards associated with that. We also have rotating parts. So rotating parts can get caught, you can get your finger caught. If you've got long hair, you might get your hair caught in it. So hair nets, tie your hair up. Gloves, nitrile gloves, if you're dealing with dirty brake pads or chemicals. What else have we got? Anyone? Hot parts, hot components can cause burns. Thermal burns, so you've got to make sure, let it cool down or wear appropriate clothing. Okay. Thank you, Brian. Taking notes, well done. We'll move on to our next slide here. Rightio, the hazards, what I just spoke about. So we got asbestos exposure. So they're saying that historically, like from years ago, brake pads, all that contained asbestos fibres. Inhaling brake dust can cause serious respiratory problems and mesothelioma. I had to look at that word, make sure I said it correctly. Mesothelioma. So that is an infection of your lungs. You'll basically be on an oxygen bottle, breathing through a mask. So we're going to make sure we're very, very careful around brake dust. Workshops, some backyard workshops are probably still using compressed air and just blowing it around and sucking it all in. Never blow brake dust out with an air nozzle or compressed air, because you're just blowing all those asbestos fibres into the atmosphere. You can't see it. You might be able to see a bit of a plume of dust, but asbestos fibres are really tiny and you'll breathe it all in and they'll attach to your lungs. We got mechanical injuries, pinch points, sharp edges, heavy components, cuts, crushing injuries and strains. So you've got to make sure you're aware, be aware, have a look at what you're doing. If you're trying to undo a bolt or something that's quite tight, be aware of where your hand's going to end up when it comes loose, because it may jam you, like that one there did to me, in between two bits of metal, which is going to hurt. Okay? So you've got to be aware. Power tools, obviously if you're using power tools, you've got impact guns, make a lot of noise, wear earmuffs, ear protection. If you're using electrical tools, make sure you've checked the electrical tag and it's in date, and don't use it around water. Rightio, chemical exposure. As we talked about earlier, we find all our chemicals, like brake fluid, we find all the risks and all that associated with that in the SDS, Safety Data Sheet, which is where you'll find all the information you require for handling those chemicals, how to store it, what to do in an emergency situation, what PPE to wear. So the most important PPE to wear with brake fluid is obviously going to be safety glasses, because we don't want brake fluid in our eyes. It can cause eye damage, irritation to the skin, and it will take the paint off a car. So you can imagine what's in it. If it can melt the paint off a car, then it must be quite a serious chemical, really. If you do manage to spill it on the paint of the car, make sure you wash it off immediately with water. Okay? That basically dissolves brake fluid. Which brings us on to that word, if you can see that, hygroscopic. So hygroscopic relates to something that can rapidly absorb moisture. So once you expose brake fluid to the air, take the lid off your master cylinder, it's immediately sucking in all the moisture it can. That's what they call it, hygroscopic. So we'll talk about that later when we do our inspect on the brakes. So we talk about hygroscopic then, we talk about the boiling point of brake fluid. Once it becomes hygroscopic, once it gets moisture in it, its boiling point will lower, so it will overheat quicker. But that's another subject. Gets on the skin, you'll get skin irritation, gets in your eyes, it'll cause damage. Obviously, cleaning solvents like brake clean also are hazardous, they're highly flammable. They can knock you out, I suppose, if you sniff it. So always wear a mask, never spray it at anyone, in anyone's direction. Definitely don't light it on fire, because it's quite volatile and harmful. Workshop hazards. So if we're working with brake fluid and we spill some on the floor, we want to make sure we clean that up straight away. But what we want to do is make sure we don't spill it on the floor. So we would use drain trays, something to catch that brake fluid. We can use brake hose clamps. If we've got to take the brake caliper off or undo the pipes, we can clamp those pipes off with brake fluid clamps. That'll stop it from dripping on the floor. Or put a drain tray under it, because brake fluid is quite slippery and you will slip over and you can injure yourself. And we can also, apart from that, it takes time to clean the workshop up. So if you've got a big spillage on the floor, you've got to contain it, you've got to mop it up, clean it up, and that's all time consuming. Obviously power tools, excessive noise, vibration, so make sure you're wearing earmuffs, gloves. I know impact guns do cause musculoskeletal injuries. The constant hammering of an impact gun pushes these two bones apart in here, the scaphoid and the lunate, which is called scapholunate widening from the constant use of a railgun, which I've got, by the way. Any questions? You sure? Pretty straightforward, isn't it? Be aware, be safe. So, assessing potential risks. So when we're inspecting anything for damage, leaks and component wear, we've got to make sure that we've got the car in the air, on stands, on jack. If you're using a jack, make sure it's on a flat piece of ground, jacked up with safety stands supporting the weight of the vehicle, because we don't want the vehicle to fall off the stands and crush someone. When you're looking for visible damage or leaks, always wear eye protection, because some cars do have a lot of dirt and all that underneath, can fall in your eyes. Measuring brake pad thickness and checking it with manufacturer specifications. So obviously we've got to use the correct tooling, which this person here is actually using digital vernier calipers. You guys seen them before?
No.
You haven't, Brian? Valen, you're nodding your head. Sorry. Jensen, you're giving us a nod. Haven't seen them? Anyway, they're a good tool. So make sure you wear appropriate safety equipment. Make sure you use the correct tools as per the manufacturer's specifications. We go through this when we do the other unit, but we just need to make sure that we're taking note of the hazards and all that. Before we would do anything, we'd obviously go and do a risk assessment anyway. So risk assessments, Take 5, or what they have on mine sites is JSA's, Job Safety Analysis, which is like a Take 5, but on steroids. It's way more involved. So anything you find that's a hazard, you want to report it to your supervisor. Okay, any questions so far? Negative? Let's move on to the next slide then. Once I find my mouse. There we go. It's hard to see against the white background. Control measures, engineering controls. So dust containment. So they have things like that with special vacuum cleaners, heap of vacuum cleaners to vacuum up any kind of asbestos fibres when working with brakes. So you would use a little vacuum cleaner and that would go to a separate container and it would keep it all in there. Never seen one in use myself, but I have heard of them. So this is pretty heavy duty, isn't it? So they capture and contain potentially harmful brake dust particles. So you probably only see something like that in a big trucking business that would have a lot of brake dust. I mean, cars do produce a lot of brake dust, but normally the wet cleaning method is the best method. So when we're inspecting drum brakes or anything like that, they're going to have brake dust inside those drums. As soon as you pull those drums off, it's going to have a fair bit of brake dust. So we just don't get the air gun and blow it out and suck all that shit in. We wet it all down. So the wet water-based cleaning methods are probably the best way to go. Prevents all that airborne contamination and you won't get it in your nose and in your throat and causing all sorts of things. Proper workshop ventilation is also a pretty good idea to have. Whether it's extractor fans, vents, it's always good to have proper ventilation in the workshop. Okay, so safe work practices and personal protective equipment. So PPE, everyone knows that it's PPE, don't we? So PPE, what does PPE mean? Personal protective equipment, which could be anything from safety glasses, hard hats, ear muffs, respirators, chemical gloves, nitrile gloves, work clothes, steel cap safety boots. So all these things, obviously gloves is pretty good. Most guys these days I've seen in workshops are wearing gloves. Basically, it protects themselves from any kind of chemicals. It also keeps your hands cleaner. Also hot, anything that's hot, if you've got to touch it, it'll eliminate any kind of burns. At least give you some form of protection. So that's basically our defence against being injured. First off, wear the correct PPE. Our other defence that we've got is our brain. So you've got to work smart, be aware, and watch what you're doing and be aware of what can happen. Okay, safe cleaning techniques. Number one, never use compressed air to clean brake assemblies or components. As we've discussed, this can disperse harmful particles. Use vacuum system or wet cleaning. Most places aren't going to have that vacuum cleaner system set up, and it looks pretty expensive. Manufacturer's guidelines. Always look to the manufacturer's guidelines because they might have something in their way of doing things that is different. Obviously, we've got to go to it for torque specifications to ensure proper assembly, but we'll do that when we're doing actual inspection on brake systems. Okay, moving on. Any questions?
I feel you're covering it all.
You feel that I'm covering it all, but I feel you're absorbing all what I'm covering. No. We'll find out when we do the quiz, how much of absorption we've got. Rightio, inspection and service procedures. Visual inspection. So we start off with a visual with anything really, don't we? You're going to have a visual inspection. We're going to look around. We're going to be looking for any kind of signs of leaks, damage, hoses. Hoses wear out. They don't last forever. They can crack. They can get bubbles inside them. So we're going to be looking for damage, leaks, anything like that, unusual wear patterns, measurement. When we're measuring tools, brake pad thickness, rotor thickness, disc run out, lateral run out, parallelism. Here we go, 4-syllable, 5-syllable word. We always got to make sure that we refer to manufacturer's specifications for the minimum and maximum, what limit they can go to. Fluid assessment. Obviously, brake fluid, as I said, breaks down. It absorbs moisture. Once it absorbs moisture, the boiling point lowers. Once the boiling point lowers, when you're braking, your brakes get hot, because that's how they work. They work by friction. So it causes heat. Once heat gets into those brake pads, into the brake fluid, if the boiling point has lowered, the brake fluid is going to boil. It's going to evaporate. Your brakes aren't going to work properly. So you'll get brake fade, you'll get a spongy pedal because the brake fluid can no longer do its job. We can test that with boiling point testers. We've heard of them?
No.
Brian. Are you sure, Brian? Never heard of a boiling point tester?
Oh, yeah.
Measures the moisture content in brake fluid. I'm not saying you have or you haven't. Maybe you've never heard of that. But that's why we're here. We're here to learn about it. Component integrity. Obviously, brake lines, hoses, check fittings for leaks, cracks, damage, physical damage, anything that might compromise the braking performance. Functional testing. Functional, what does that mean? Take it out for a road test, drive it, check the handbrake on a hill, make sure it's working. And always take note of anything you find wrong and report it. Any questions? No? We're all good? Moving along. Compliance with workplace policies and procedures. So, we got to abide by our workplace policies and procedures. We also got to abide by legislation and the law. So workplace specific safety protocols, proper hazard reporting and documentation, maintaining records. We always got to maintain our records. When we're disposing of old brake fluid, it's obviously got to be taken as toxic, so it's got to be removed by a licensed person that removes that sort of stuff. So you would have to have a liquid hydrocarbon bin for all your liquids that come out from a vehicle to be stored in, to be taken away. Proper training when you're working on brakes, or on anything really. Brakes very important, because brakes, if we have a mishap with brakes and we don't tighten something up properly or tension those caliper bolts to the right torque, we can have a catastrophic failure, and a catastrophic failure could lead to death of someone. So brakes are very important, because if we do something wrong, there could be fatalities involved. Someone might die, and there could be legal ramifications as well. Technician training. Obviously, we all need to be trained. We can't just go and do something when we don't know what we're doing. Very important. Rightio, moving right along. Rightio. Risk assessment. So before we start working on anything, we've got to make sure we're aware of what risks are involved, what hazards, what risks, how we're going to control that risk, what we're going to do. Then you've got to work out the hierarchy of controls. Obviously, the first thing you'll do is remove the risk altogether. That would be the easiest thing, wouldn't it? Sometimes you can't. So our last line of defence, obviously, PPE. We've always got to make sure if we're using a hoist, we do a hoist inspection. If we use the proper lifting points under the car, so always on a solid flat surface. When we're lifting it up in the air, always make sure we're lowering it back onto the safety locks, onto the safety mechanism. Isolating the vehicle. Some cars might have an isolated switch. You can just switch off. Is that really isolating a car though? Someone can just come along and turn it back on. Removing the keys is isolating the vehicle. However, once you remove the keys, if we've got the car up in the air and we want to move those wheels, we're not going to be able to, because the steering lock's going to come on. So the best way to isolate a vehicle is to take the battery out. No one can come along and try and start it up. We've still got access, we can move it, move the wheels if we have to when we're doing the brake pads. Any questions? Okay. You guys seem pretty clued up. So, that's going to conclude our little PowerPoint presentation on safety when inspecting servicing brakes. Is everyone happy with that?
Oh, yeah.
Did we cover everything? Okay, well, maybe we should do a little 10-question little pop quiz. I won't say it's an assessment because it's not. It's a little pop quiz to see if we've absorbed and gained the knowledge required. So you guys have a little read through that. It's got a place for your name and date. Blow out on my glasses too. Wow, Brian, you're on page 2 already, Brian. Done, Brian. You're done. Jensen, you're done. How'd you go, Seth? You alright?
I think so.
You think so? Anyway, we'll go through them all right now if you want. I'll go through it all. Question 1. Which of the following is a common hazard when working on brake systems?
Brake dust.
Brake dust? Is everyone got that?
Yes.
Well done. Well, and it's not electrical shock, is it? No. True or false? Brake dust may contain harmful substances like asbestos.
True.
True. What hazard is posed by servicing hot brake components immediately after a vehicle has been used? Thermal burns. Not chemical burns. Thermal, heat.
Not frostbite.
Not frostbite? No. That would be from exposure to something very, very cold. Well done, Bowen. Well done, mate. Which situation could lead to a slip hazard in a workshop?
Brake fluid.
Brake fluid leaks on the floor, spilling it on the floor. Yep. Leaving your tools lying around all over the place probably causes you a slip hazard as well, but we're talking about brake fluid here. Wearing gloves can help reduce the risk of skin exposure to brake fluid. True or false?
True.
True. If you are working under a lifted vehicle without proper support stands, what type of hazard are you going to be exposed to?
Crush.
Getting crushed. Yep, crushing. What control measure should be used to reduce the inhalation of brake dust?
Wet wiping components.
Wet wiping the components, yeah. You got that, Brian?
Yep.
Yeah, so we're not just going to blow it out. What PPE is most critical when inspecting brake fluid systems?
Safety.
Safety glasses, absolutely. You're not going to wear a welding helmet, are we? No, we've got to be able to see what we're doing. true or false, lifting heavy brake rotors without assistance or equipment could lead to a manual handling injury?
True.
Could do, couldn't it? Most brake rotors and that in light vehicles aren't that heavy, but they can be. If you're dealing with trucks, then yeah, most definitely extremely heavy. What's the best way to prevent a trip hazard when servicing brakes?
Maintain, clean and organised work area. Yeah.
Barnum, you are a genius. You're a genius, mate. Maintain a clean and organised work area. Make sure your tools are put back so when you go to get them, they're there. You're not running around looking for stuff. Don't leave stuff lying all over the floor. Cause a trip hazard. Yeah, always clean up after use. Well, thank you guys. That about concludes this one for inspecting service brakes, safety aspect of it, identifying hazards and control measures. Our next one will be on actually inspecting brake components, what we're using, what tools to use, how we're going to do it, what we're going to do, and how we're going to check it against manufacturer's specifications. So thank you all for coming and listening and being patient. Thank you.
Thank you all.